When Alpine launched the A110, it always had a faster and more focused version in mind. This is it. It's called the A110S. We're going to test it today, but not, James, on its own.
No, we're not. We're going to test it against this, the Porsche Cayman T, which is arguably the benchmark for focused mid-engine, four-cylinder, two-seater coupes.
Yeah, they're both just under 300 horsepower. They're both similar money, 55 to 60 grand. So we're going to test them both back to back and decide which is the best car for your money.
So, the Cayman T. Now, we've already sort of had a comparison between the Alpine and the Cayman, but that was the Alpine in its original form, and that car, with its lightness and its suppleness, it was a distinctly different car, despite having a very similar template to the Porsche. In bringing out the A110S, Alpine have brought that car closer to the Porsche template, a firmer, more focused kind of sports car. And as a result, this test arguably is more relevant now than it was before. So what have we got? Well, Cayman T, that's the 2-litre engine, the 2-litre flat 4, 296 brake horsepower, about 280 pounds-foot of torque. But it's in the chassis that this car is a bit special. So it's got the 20mm lower ride height. You get adaptive dampers as standard. You get the Porsche torque vectoring limited slip differential. And as a result, it's supposed to deliver the purest, outside of the GT4 arguably, the purest Cayman driving experience. And in terms of chassis, I mean, it's sublime. It is absolutely sublime. So the steering, you just can tell exactly how much grip you've got. It's not chatty in the old school Porsche sense. It's not writhing around, but there's more than enough information there. Porsche say they give you all you need in terms of information, and then just strip away the stuff that you don't, the kickback, all that sort of thing. The steering is brilliant. And there's just so much grip. There are few cars that feel this good mid-corner, and then when you lift the throttle you can feel it tucking in, or in these greasy conditions with that limited slip differential you can even start to sort of play around with the attitude on the power on throttle. It's such a great thing. And on the road, yes, it's firm, but it's not uncomfortable. Like all cars with brilliant damping, even the stiffest ones, they just round off the edges. They take the sharp impacts and just smooth them out. You're moved about, but it's not uncomfortable. No way. Now, yes, there is a small problem, and it's the engine. And the Alpine has a 4-cylinder engine, but it doesn't seem to matter as much as it does in this. The sound is just, it's not there. It's fairly effective. You've got to get some revs on. So they reckon peak torque's about 2,100 RPM, but it's only at about 3,000, and then the boost builds and it gets a lick on, but it's not going to rip your face off quick. It's quick enough, but you need to be on boost, which is a good thing. You get a 6-speed manual as standard. Now that's a differentiator between this and the Alpine, and I think it's an important one, because more and more these days cars are so capable, grip levels are so high that on the road actually getting near the limit is difficult, and so you're looking for other things to engage you in the driving process, and this 6-speed manual, it does just that. It's got a lovely mechanical precise throw. I think that's a crucial part of what makes this car so good, and why I might tolerate the engine, because I get a manual gearbox, which I don't get in the Alpine. And in every other respect, the detail stuff, the Porsche is so good. It doesn't matter how good the Alpine is. I personally cannot get on with the driving position. The steering wheel's kind of canted over like a bus, and if you get the bucket seats, you're just sat so far back, you feel like you're stretching for the steering wheel and your knees are in your face, whereas the Porsche, it has got such a wide range of adjustment, and that sounds like a dull everyday thing, but believe me, it matters. It really matters, because if you're not comfortable, you're not going to be able to get the best out of your car, and this thing is spot on. The more a car communicates with you, the more confidence you have to push it that bit harder. One thing you do have to remember though, is it's got one of these rotary driver mode switches. Now that engine, its off-boost lethargy is exaggerated if you leave it in the normal mode. You have to immediately get in, stick it in sport mode. What a car. I really like it. Now with that 20mm lower ride height and those standard adaptive dampers, where the Porsche arguably really scores over the Alpine is in in its level of control. Now, I always felt I love the original Alpine, and it's the way it flows down the road is great, but you just feel it misses that final few degrees of body control through fast corners. It sort of starts to corkscrew slightly as the body's not quite tied down. The Porsche, it just feels so controlled. The dampers have a cast iron control over what's going on, so it corners flat and fast, and even mid-corner bumps, you feel them, but you don't really hear them, and they're checked immediately. So you get this lovely kind of nuggetiness to the way the car goes down the road. Always just moving a little bit, but it's breathing with the road surface, but with an unbelievable sense of control. The damping calibration is just out of this world. It is so good. Clever stuff has gone on underneath this car. There are some very smart people at Weissach, and they've got some big computers and some big brains, but they've also got some very finely calibrated bottoms, because there are few other cars that can do what this can do. Just everything is so beautifully weighted, all the controls, so progressive. You put in what you put in, you get back is a direct proportional response. There's no grabbiness, no sudden lurch that you weren't expecting. You put this much steering lock in, the car responds that way. You put this much throttle in, the car responds, certainly when it's on boost. With the brakes, you brake as hard as you want and you get just the amount you need.
So I think Alpine's reckoning went something like this. Look, we've made a car, it's got an amazing primary and secondary ride. Actually, it just sort of floats along, but is really agile, weighs less than 1,100 kilos. Tremendous thing. But there are some buyers who may want a car that is a little bit more focused and a little bit more hardcore. If somebody's doing track days or they're spending a lot of time on really smooth, fast roads, they might want something that's a little bit more keyed down than the standard A110. So they gave them this. So it's the S. It adds a little bit of money. This is sort of 56 grand basic, but this one's got a carbon roof and some other options, which takes it to £60,000. There is the argument that's quite a lot of money for a 1.8 litre coupe with less than 300 horsepower, even in this form. So that's 40 brake-ish more than the standard A110, which gets 240 something. This has 292 metric horsepower. People will say, well, you can get a Golf R, which has got that much power, or a Honda Civic Type R, which has got 300 plus horsepower for nearly half the money. There is goodness in buying a bespoke coupe. It takes a lot of money to develop a car. It takes a lot of money to make a car like this out of aluminium, when it's bits that are not shared with a standard production car. So there's a moral goodness in buying a coupe in the way that there isn't in buying a hot hatchback. That's what I'm saying. I love this car. So in S form, over the standard A110, you get lowered suspension by a whole 4 millimeters. It's not very much, but things are much stiffer. Spring rates are 50% stiffer than standard. The anti-roll bars are 100% stiffer than standard. The engine's been turned up largely through boost, so it's got the same twin clutch DCT gearbox, rear wheel drive still, and although power is up to nearly 300, torque stays about the same, which is about 236 foot-pounds, because that's the maximum that this transmission can handle. So although it's faster sort of at the top end once you start to work this engine. So for a 4-pot, it sounds all right, doesn't it, I think? It's got quite a little raspy exhaust note going on. Gear shifts are not bad. I mean, I would prefer it if this car had a really terrific manual gearbox, but I don't think Renault's ever, in recent years, given anyone a terrific manual gearbox anyway, so you might as well have a DCT that works well, rather than a slightly notchy manual, I suppose, is their thinking. And you do gain some things and you lose some things. So this car runs bigger wheels than the standard A110. You can get this wheel size as an option on the standard regular A110. And with the suspension changes, it runs a little bit firmer, unsurprisingly too. But having driven an A110 and an S on the road back to back, on the road, on really bad British B roads, I think the standard A110 has a little bit more nuance and breathability over bumps about it that makes it arguably a preferable car to this. But when you really start to extend this car, actually I don't think you lose too much in terms of its agility and its balance and its finesse and its feel. All of that stuff is still there. When you start cornering this car hard, it still turns with brilliant sharpness, wonderful precision, amazing agility, and a really lovely mid-engined sensitive balance. I think the Alpine A110 standard has a little bit more going for it than this A110S. I don't think there's a right and there's a wrong, but I think either, for me, is preferable to the Cayman. I just love what this does. I love the way it goes about it, but I don't know what James is saying about the Cayman in it at the moment. So we'll get together and we'll have a discussion, agreement, maybe argument, who knows. Right, mate, so what did you learn about the Cayman T?
What did I learn about the Cayman T? I think I learned what we already knew, that it's got a sublime chassis, and mediocre would be harsh, but certainly a regrettable engine.
Yes, which Porsche are regretting as we speak.
They are regretting it so much that they're sort of slowly hoping we forget about it by putting 6 cylinders back in it.
But it's still a great handling car.
Oh, I mean, I think I said at the time, the amount of money and time that has been lavished on the chassis in that car just beggars belief. I mean, the Alpines are fantastic, but there is just a depth of ability to the Cayman that I don't think they can quite get near.
Now this is interesting.
Is it? Oh,
yeah.
dear.
Because because we usually are fairly we are as one, aren't we? We're
Yes.
like a Borg hive mind.
Yes.
However, I really like this. Not as arguably not as much on the kind of roads and the kind of driving that I do as I like the standard A110.
Yeah.
But I suspect this may have a different steering map or just different steering geometry or something they've done to it. I like the steering in this more than the standard A110.
Yeah.
But what I love about both A110, this and the S, and I think I like more than the Cayman, is just the agility and just how light it is.
Yes. Yeah.
But
my argument, I'd almost say it's too capable, the Cayman. So when I say it's got its depth ability, it has a much deeper well of ability to draw upon. I think when you're really leaning on it, it is a special thing. But that does mean at saner speeds, it's maybe not quite as engaging.
That's interesting.
So bringing the A110S closer to the Cayman, I feel like everything that makes the standard car so special, some of it's eroded a little bit. This is a brilliant piece of kit, but I think I would choose the standard car over this one because it's so different from the Cayman. It's not trying to be a Cayman.
Yeah,
and what it does brilliantly.
Yeah. This feels like a more conventional car, sports car, doesn't it? Really.
Yeah.
And this is. I mean, it's certainly the right two cars to test against each other, aren't they?
Definitely.
But I don't know if it's the right Alpine for most people's road driving.
No, I think the standard car is a much better everyday road car. I mean, there are certain things that will always frustrate me. The steering wheel position, slightly bus-like. I can't get as comfortable behind the wheel of this as I can a Cayman. That touchscreen's all a bit kind of, you might as well just do it like that. There is so much to like about it, but it's flawed. The Porsche just feels like that much more expensively engineered, well thought through thing, which is to be expected because they've been doing it for donkey's years.
Yeah, and it probably is all of those things. More expensive, more engineered, and more more thought through because they've got more time and money to put.
That's true.
So between this and the Cayman, if it were your money or monthly payment or whatever, it would be the Cayman, wouldn't it?
Oh, that's such a tough question. It really is. I would. You go first while I'm thinking.
All right. Everything you said about the Cayman being a better car, about the money spent on it and how thoroughly developed it feels and everything else is absolutely true, and I would not dispute a single word of it, and I would have one of these.
my limited engineering brain, I don't have much of an engineering brain, my limited engineering brain appreciates everything that the Porsche is. And like I said, I love the driving position, I love the manual gearbox, the chassis is just sublime. But I think ultimately, given the way this goes, because it's so light, you get that lack of inertia, and it manages to make a four-cylinder work in a way that Cayman doesn't. My own money, my own monthly payment, I think it would be one of these.
Oh, well, there you go. We have agreement.
Yeah.
So we are in agreement as usual.
Yes.
As usual,
It just took a little longer than usual to get there.
The car of choice is the Alpine A110S, but actually the car of choice is a standard Alpine A110, or perhaps even a Cayman GTS, which we will be testing with a six-cylinder engine again quite soon. Or you may already find it elsewhere on this channel, depending on when you're watching. But I recommend liking, subscribing, turning on notifications, and we'll tell you in your inbox. Ping. Probably doesn't get annoying at all, does it?
No.
Watch this video.
Now. Your life won't be complete.
But anyway, very grateful. We're here all the time. We're at Autocar.co.uk. We're in all good news agents and some rubbish ones every Wednesday since 1895. See you next time.